Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and there's one thing that you can't get on CNBC, but you can get it here, and that is stories about the host of the show going to Crystal. I can promise you that Andrew Ross Sorkin has probably never set foot in a Crystal. Well, this morning I had a low-carb bowl from Crystal. Their sausage low-carb bowl. It's nothing but sausage, cheese, and eggs. I was waiting on one of my sons to get out of a class that he was in, like an exercise class. And while he's exercising, I was going to get a low-carb bowl from Crystal, and so just to kill some time. And so, but I just wanted to make sure you understood that if I know that you can watch CNBC all day long, but you're not going to hear them talk about how they went to Crystal. Now, if I was one of the hosts on CNBC, I would literally call in a bunch of Crystal cheeseburgers and eat them right there on set, because I think it would probably improve their ratings. But God forbid they actually insert some personality into what they do. But those guys are I think Joe Kernan's not as much of a stiff as some of those guys. But I can tell you this: if you have never been like at someone's house watching football, a football game or something, and everybody's drinking beer and having a good time, and then towards the end of the night, someone has the genius idea to go and get a bag full of cheese crystals, then you haven't lived yet. I highly encourage you to do that. There's nothing better than a whole bag full of cheese crystals when everybody has been partying and having a good time towards the end of the night. Well, I'm going to start this video off with Mr. B XRP. At XRP, Mr. Sent me a note that MoneyGram stock is going crazy this morning. I do not know why, but I did think that was important to at least show you this morning. The stock is up, looks like 10.5%. It was up as high as 14% when I looked at it earlier. I don't know if this has anything to do with Ripple or XRP or any of the above, but it is something worthy of showing you. Okay, now this morning, and Chinu Patel is on it as usual. This morning, I was watching CNBC, and they announced that they were going to have Steve Minuchin, the Treasury Secretary, on the show. They did have him on the show, and he talked about crypto. Both Joe Kernan and Steve Minuchin mentioned the phrase level playing field during this clip. Well, Chinu Patel was quick to get me some of the clips, and so here we go. These are all at Squawk NBC if you want to go pull some of them yourself. First thing Steve Minuchin says is, I think the dollar is the reserve currency in the world. It's in our interest. We want to maintain it, says Treasury Secretary Steve Minuchin. Right now, there is a lot of people who want to invest in the U.S., and that creates a lot of demand for dollars. Well, I think that they may be able to, in theory, they may be able to be called the world reserve currency, but I don't think as we go forward that the U.S. is going to be the world reserve currency really anything more than in name only as we go further down the road, because I think all these countries have had it, and I think the U.S. has abused that power, and I think that's the problem they're in now. So I think, yeah, we may be the reserve currency in name, but all of these countries are about to go around it. So if they want to have the title world reserve currency, that's one thing, but actually being the world reserve currency, I question that. Okay, next, this was also from Squawk Box, and Steve Minuchin says, I can assure you I will personally not be, let me make sure this is not playing on the mic. I can assure you I will personally not be loaded up on Bitcoin in 10 years, says Treasury Secretary Minuchin. And then Lionel comes in and says he will be loaded up on XRP. That's why. Now, this reminds me of when Christine Lagarde she was on stage at an event one time, and she, as kind of an aside, she said she was talking about digital assets and how they'll be disruptive or something, and then she actually says, and it won't be Bitcoin and Ethereum. She literally said that. Okay, and next here's one other clip that of him. Now this almost made me mad. This is from Steve Minuchin. Amazon has destroyed the retail industry across the United States, says Treasury Secretary Minuchin. It's absolutely right. The Attorney General is looking into antitrust issues. To me, this is disgusting. Someone comes along with a new technology, builds a company that helps the consumer and makes things more convenient for all of us. And then when they finally see the success that is obviously going to be the result of improving people's lives and making things better and more efficient and cheaper, then the government attacks them. That, to me, that represents everything that's wrong with government. When you go after the very companies that have changed everyone's lives for the better, and they always do it. They did it against Microsoft. They've done it to Walmart. They've done it. Now they're wanting to do it to Amazon. It's kind of like, and make no mistake, folks, they say that it's about antitrust issues, but what this is always about is once you have all the money, that's when the government gets really interested. That's when all these politicians get really interested in you, is when you have too much money. And that is a sad state of affairs, in my opinion. I think it's disgusting. What they ought to be doing is having a parade for Amazon in Washington, and those politicians ought to be on the head float and kissing their butts for the changes they've made. If other companies, if retail has gone out of business as a result of Amazon, that's because someone running those retail businesses was not on their game, and they weren't paying attention to competition and the landscape. That is part of owning a business. If you aren't paying attention to what's coming and what your challenges are and the threats to your businesses, then that's your failing. That is not a reason to go after Amazon. Well, there's that rant, folks. Okay, and then next, there's literally so much good news now, folks, that, and I want to, before I leave that completely about Minuchin being on CNBC, before I leave that completely, let's talk about this, what really matters in all this. Almost every day, it is a constant drumbeat now of news that's going on about crypto. It's obvious that it's here to stay because they're not trying to kill it. They're talking, but they can't quit talking about it. It is constant and it's not stopping. And I'll show you more that's coming today. There's so much news coming into me right now that 3 videos is really not enough to cover it all at this point. So I'm doing the best I can and trying to make the videos a tad bit longer, not too much. Okay, from Jason Williams, Bitcoin price is down, but Dan Morehead at Pantera has some good news. Morehead's logarithmic scale work shows $42,000 price by the end of 2019. This is for Bitcoin. $122,000 by the end of 2020. $365,000 price by the end of 2021. I'd say that's a nice move from 96.80. Well, I like that. Now, what this came from, this is what I wanted to show you. This is from NBK Crypto, at NBKLYRAD. This came from a Forbes article. Dan Morehead, for those of you that don't know, is the Pantera Capital CEO. He is also an investor in Ripple, by the way. He also does not talk about XRP or Ripple very often, like many Ripple investors do not. And that's always interesting. But what I was drawn to in this article, he did predict that he thought 42,000 by the end of the year. But I thought this was interesting. Bitcoin's never-ending hype cycles. And this is not just for Bitcoin. This is for all of crypto right now. And it really puts things in perspective for you. That's why I wanted to show it to you. Bitcoin's never-ending hype cycles. When asked about the current stage of development for cryptocurrency space as a whole, Morehead first pointed to the Gartner hype cycle, which is a method of interpreting the wide-ranging levels of hype that can occur around new technologies. A small kernel of something very important gets people to be crazed about Bitcoin, and then the trough of disillusionment occurs. And we've already gone through 2 of those cycles in the 6 years that we've been investing in it, said Morehead. So I decided to go and look at this Gartner hype cycle so that you could see what he's talking about. You can go to Gartner.com if you want to look at this. And here's the Gartner hype cycle. And I can tell you from experience, this is all that we're going through right now. You'll see these where you've got innovation trigger, and it'll be peak of inflated expectations, all kinds of FOMOs piling in, and we'll see everything blast off, and then you'll see, then it'll stop blasting off, and you might go through one of these. And then, but ultimately, this is what's going to happen, the plateau of productivity. And this is what when I see this, what I see for XRP, I see the MoneyGram deal, the deployment of XRP to me, and then not just MoneyGram, but all of these companies that are about to employ XRP in a use case. That is where we go off. That is where the real money is going to be made, in my opinion, and that is what you need to keep your eye on. All this daily price, the price is down. That doesn't mean anything if you really have studied and done your research and understand what we're involved in here. You would not be the least bit upset about that. You need to go do more research if that's if you're still upset about that type of thing. But it goes through and tells you more about each phase of the cycle if you want to go and look into this. Just go Google. It's Gartner hype cycle. Go Google that and you can go look at it. Let's see what we got next. From Jack the Ripper. This was also, I believe this was from Chinu Patel. I want to say this is from Chinu Patel. Boom. He does boom on every one of his tweets. This is a video clip from the new Swift CEO in 2016, Javier Perez Tasso. Blockchain has the potential to transform the financial industry. There is competition, but it's also collaboration. Increasingly, more with incumbent players partnering or even acquiring some of these fintechs. So this guy, that's a pretty interesting quote there, in my opinion. I'm a digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family to go get some cheese crystals. Thank you for listening.